innate immunity and adaptive immunity is a horrendously complex science. I mean, I can't even, the complexity, it's a whole other language within medicine itself. I mean, you have incredibly smart doctors and incredibly smart PhDs around the world that still can't even grasp what immunity is, because it's a very, very, very complex science. But the beauty of this situation is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist in order to put lifestyle habits into play that actually boost your overall immunity and minimize your risk for complications. And that's the beauty of this entire system.
Welcome to another episode. We're really glad to have you joining us. Whether you're watching this video or listening to the audio, we really appreciate you checking out our information. There is a lot going on in the world right now, and there's a lot of confusing information. And we are very passionate about separating fact from fiction and really addressing what is going on with people who are living with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, and coronavirus. So we took it upon ourselves to put together a mini summit and speak with experts who are on the front lines, actually seeing COVID-19 patients right now, and lifestyle experts who are digging into the research to understand what's going on, and also doctors who are looking into the treatments and what can we do moving forward. So we put together the summit. We interviewed 9 experts over the past 2 weeks, got them booked on our calendar, and we learned a lot. And we cannot wait to share this information with you all. We asked them really important questions that we know a lot of you have been asking us, you're curious about, and they really delivered. So we asked them, why are people living with diabetes considered high risk? And we actually got deep into the science behind what's happening and what you can do about it. And it's actually fascinating what we do know already, although there's a lot we don't know. We asked questions about, why are the elderly at higher risk? And are younger people still at risk? And if so, what is leading them to be at a higher risk? What do we know? What do we not know? Again, that's an important element throughout this summit and throughout the conversation. We talk about the difference between people living with type 1 diabetes, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes. How are they affected? What about people living with autoimmune disease? What's the risk there? What can you do? So really interesting information.
Now, there's a lot of other good questions that we asked in this mini series, including, why are people with high blood pressure and heart disease also considered at high risk? Because if you go into the news or you read anything online, you're likely to find a lot of information about the fact that people with diabetes and high blood pressure and any pre-existing heart disease are actually at the highest risk. The question is, why? We'll also teach you how you can protect your family and your loved ones who may also be living with any other form of pre-existing health condition, whether it's some kind of metabolic condition or a chronic disease. We'll teach you about the science of immunity. That's a fun one, actually. And we'll teach you what foods can actually boost your innate immunity. Okay, there's a lot of really powerful information specifically within that one particular question. And we'll teach you how to thrive. That's the most important thing. In today's world, I think a lot of people are concerned about, how do I survive? How do I just get from today to tomorrow? And that's okay. But in addition to that, we want you to also understand that the coronavirus presents you with an opportunity to really to focus on your daily life. And when you focus on the habits that you put into play on a daily basis, it can really change your overall metabolic health. It can boost your immunity, and it can severely decrease your risk for many complications of the coronavirus as this disease, COVID-19, continues to permeate throughout society for the next upcoming months and potentially even years.
We are going to touch on some of these questions in today's episode, but you don't want to miss the opportunity to hear from renowned experts, doctors on the front lines, and New York Times best-selling authors during the 3-day summit. So make sure to register. The event is free. Wherever you're hearing this, I'm sure you'll see a link below, or you can just simply go to masteringdiabetes.org and register. It starts this Saturday, April 11th, 12th, and 13th. You can hear these interviews for free, so just make sure to register. Now, there is a lot of confusion right now. You will hear experts all over the internet and on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, warning you against charlatans trying to take advantage of you and selling you products that are not going to be effective and telling you about lifestyle habits you can do that actually won't help you. And we agree. You should be careful. You should gather your information from trusted sources. The information should be vetted and it should come from evidence-based scientific material. So that's, again, why we are taking the time here to separate the facts from fiction. And we feel really informed ourselves after getting to talk to these 9 experts and do some research ourselves. So Cyrus, why don't we start from the top and define the terms that we are hearing over and over again. So what is a coronavirus?
Okay, so the coronavirus refers to a family of viruses that have been around for many, many years. We're referring to this virus as the coronavirus, but in reality, there's a whole collection of coronavirus that are called SARS, which are sudden acute respiratory syndrome viruses that trigger respiratory problems.
That's right. So there's several different coronaviruses. And then, like you said, there's SARS-CoV-2, which is the name of this novel virus that is brand new, that we don't know much about.
That's correct. Yes, exactly right.
And then SARS-CoV-2 is actually what leads to COVID-19. And COVID-19 is just short for Coronavirus Disease 2019.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So you want to kind of separate all of the terms, right? Coronavirus is a family. SARS-CoV-2 is one particular virus, which is the virus that's causing the outbreak right now. And COVID-19 is the medical condition that's caused by infection with SARS-CoV-2.
That's exactly right. Okay. So what is going on with people talking about a DNA virus versus an RNA virus? What does that mean?
Okay. So I'm going to refer to the coronavirus, for the purpose of this conversation, it's a reference to SARS-CoV-2. So the reason an RNA virus can be so problematic is because an RNA virus contains a single-stranded piece of genetic material. Okay, DNA is double-stranded, RNA is single-stranded, and so the single-strand RNA can sometimes be accompanied by double-stranded RNA, but it's a little bit more rare. The idea here is that an RNA virus, it'll take residence inside of a host, and a host in this particular example is a human being. So it'll get inside of a human being and it'll basically infect a particular anchor protein. And that anchor protein in this particular situation is the angiotensin converting enzyme number 2, ACE2, that is expressed predominantly in the epithelial cells inside of your lung and your kidney. So what that means is that the infection generally takes residence inside of your lung and your kidney, causing lung damage and causing kidney damage. Now, an RNA virus is actually a very, very intelligent virus. And the reason for this is because what an RNA virus does is it takes residence inside of the host, and then it actually uses the host's replication machinery, genetic replication machinery, to make copies of its own RNA. But in addition to that, it also uses the host's machinery to make copies of the enzyme that will make more copies of its own RNA as well. So let me give you a simple example. Imagine that you had a piece of paper and you took the piece of paper and it was a document, like a tax document. And you took this over to Kinko's because you didn't have a photocopier. You went into Kinko's and you said, hey, I need a photocopy of this. And at Kinko's, they're like, okay, great. Sounds like a plan. They put it in their photocopier, they make a photocopy, they give it back to you, they charge you 10 cents for it. Now you have 2 copies, the original plus the photocopy, okay? That's what would happen under normal circumstances. Now, imagine if you went into Kinko's and you said, hey, I want a copy of this document, and they gave you a copy of the document, but then they also gave you a photocopier as well. So you walk out of Kinko's not only with a copy of the document, but a photocopier that enables you to make more photocopies at will. Okay, that's what an RNA virus does. It gets inside of a host. It has its own genetic material, which is the piece of paper. And instead of just getting copies of the piece of paper using the host's machinery, it actually gets the copies and then gets the machinery itself to be able to make its own copies whenever it wants. And that can be seriously problematic because, number one, it can spread very quickly. But number two, because it's single-stranded RNA, when it's replicating its own genome, there's less error checking in that process. In other words, when you replicate RNA, you can make errors. When you replicate DNA, you make errors. It happens all the time. DNA replication has error-fixing enzymes that go through and read the code and make sure that any errors that happen in the genetic replication process get fixed, and it's a very high-fidelity system. RNA replication enzymes have a weaker RNA replication error-fixing machinery. So as a result of that, when you make a copy of RNA, there tend to be slightly more errors in that RNA. And as a result of that, this RNA can then go on to become problematic and create mutants. And as a result of that, now one particular viral strain can turn into multiple viral strains because it's mutating at a much faster rate. Is that making sense?
It makes complete sense. And it's really important for people to understand this, to get an idea of why this is so serious and why it's such a big deal.
Absolutely. Yeah, the coronavirus is a very novel virus for many reasons, but one of them is the fact that it's an RNA replication, or it's an RNA virus that can replicate itself very quickly, mutate, and cause DNA errors at the same time.
Okay, so now we have a better scientific understanding of this virus, and I think it's important for us to have a conversation and be clear about this whole world of immune boosting foods and immune bolstering activities that we can do and foods that we can eat, and understanding the difference, because we are not here to say that eating a certain way or making lifestyle choices is going to prevent you from contracting SARS-CoV-2. We don't have enough data on that. There isn't enough research. There aren't enough tests going around. There's just missing information. But what we do know is that those who contract SARS-CoV-2 and are living with conditions like type 2 diabetes, hypertension, heart disease, have shown to have a greater risk of complications and higher rates of death. That we do know. So there's a whole conversation here around immune boosting foods and things that we can do. So Cyrus, what's the difference between innate immunity and adaptive immunity?
Okay, so this is a great question, because there's definitely two different types of immunity that I want to make sure we're very crystal clear on. Just like Robbie said, if anybody's trying to tell you that if you eat a particular food, it can prevent you from developing SARS-CoV-2, the answer is that's not true. We don't know that. There's not enough information. To this date, there's not enough science to say that with confidence.
And we should make it clear, there is one thing to do, or two things. It's the social distancing, which we are doing ourselves and are in support of, and it's washing your hands and keeping a very hygienic environment.
Yeah, so think about it this way. There's physical barriers that you can place to prevent you from getting infected in the first place. And then there's metabolic barriers that you can arm your innate immune system with to provide the greatest defense from a biological perspective. Okay, so the physical barriers, just like you're talking about, are number one, isolate yourself from other humans who may be infected. That's the most effective thing that you can possibly do, period, end of story. Number two, you can also wear a mask and make sure that the mask that you're wearing has a pore size that is smaller than the respiratory particle that may come through it. Okay, so if I am infected with the coronavirus and it gets into a respiratory particle and then leaves my mouth, whether I sneeze, whether I cough, or when I'm talking, if the size of that particle is smaller than the pore size of the mask, then those particles are going to go right through the mask, and then they're going to go and they could potentially infect somebody and become transmitted. Okay, so you have to make sure that you're wearing the right type of mask that has a very small pore size to prevent those respiratory particles from actually leaving your mouth. And then, like you said, wash your hands frequently. Of course, absolutely. Wash your hands as much as possible. Okay, limit the number of times that you touch your face. And then also you can clean surfaces with an alcohol-based cleaner. And by doing all of that, you're basically limiting the transmission of that virus to come towards you. 100%, all of that is very important. Now, the question that you asked me is, well, what's the difference between innate immunity and adaptive immunity? Because those are two fundamental different types of immunity that you as a human being have, and I want to make sure that we're clear on this. Number one, your innate immunity refers to your general immunity. It refers to your non-specific immune function that is specifically designed to minimize your risk for infection. Okay, so this would basically be the strength of your overall immune system that results from your lifestyle habits and results from barriers that are put in the way, including things like your skin, including your mucous membranes, including your gastric juices inside of the digestive system. Okay, so your innate immunity refers to your general non-specific immunity. Your adaptive immunity is a reference to the type of immunity that you develop in response to a very particular type of antigen. So imagine that you were exposed to the chickenpox as a kid. Okay, so you get the chickenpox virus, and the chickenpox virus gets inside of you and it causes chickenpox. You get a bunch of bumps on your skin and it looks weird, and you have that virus for, let's say, 2 to 3 weeks. Now, your adaptive immune system is basically going to interpret that antigen. It's going to disassemble the genetic machinery of that antigen, the genetic code. It's then going to figure out exactly how to manufacture antibodies specific to that genetic code. It's then going to create antibodies that then go and destroy that foreign genetic material inside of your body. And as a result of that, now you have been able to create a specific response to the chickenpox virus. So you can think of it as that your adaptive immunity is a way for your immune system to learn from an exterior antigen, manufacture a response to that antigen, and then make it so that you are not necessarily immune, but that you have much higher defenses to that antigen in the future. The thing to take into account here is that this adaptive immunity, this adaptive immune response takes time to unfold. For some people, it can take days to create antibodies particular to a specific antigen. For some people, it can take weeks to months. It depends on the strength of your innate immune system, and it depends on the strength of the virus and the strength at which that virus has sort of taken a hold of your immune system in general. Does that make sense?
So, Cyrus, if I'm understanding this correctly, the concept of adaptive immunity and how it applies to SARS-CoV-2 is to be determined. We don't know right now. It's too early. But the concept of innate immunity and how building up your innate immunity can help you deal with viruses in general is known and is worth applying. Using that information and that concept, understanding it, there is no risk in boosting your innate immunity because it might be protective against SARS-CoV-2. Would that be a good way to summarize it?
That's exactly right. Yeah, so let's put it this way. Understanding how to improve the function of your immune system is a very well-described science. Like, we're always learning new things at every point in time. The scientific community is always learning what particular foods, what particular lifestyle habits you can implement to boost your innate or your general immunity. No questions asked. But it's a very well-described science. When it comes to adaptive immunity, that's a very well-described science as well. Again, for every single particular antigen. Right now, SARS-CoV-2 is so new that the scientific community doesn't really have a good grasp on exactly what can be done to improve your adaptive response right now. And that's okay, because it's so brand new and it will happen over the course of time. But you're absolutely right. Boosting your immune system right now is the only thing that you could do to actually boost your immune function and actually prevent or to minimize your risk for complications. So it's just that simple. We're trying to teach you how to boost your general immunity, and there's never going to be, there's nothing wrong that can happen from boosting your general immunity.
Okay, so let's talk about patients who are living with hypertension, people who are living with hypertension and diabetes right now. Why are they at an increased risk of developing complications from SARS-CoV-2 and potentially dying because of COVID-19?
Okay, it's a great question. Now, you're absolutely right. People who are at the highest risk for complications from infection with SARS-CoV-2 are people living with diabetes, people living with hypertension, people living with pre-existing heart disease. Now the question really becomes, well, why? Why diabetes? Why hypertension? Why pre-existing heart disease? What is it about these conditions that elevates your risk for complications? So it turns out that if you go into the literature and you really dig deep, and again, when we talked with all these speakers in the mini summit, they gave us some really fantastic insight here. It turns out that when you're living with high blood pressure or a high A1C value, which is your sort of general average 3-month marker of blood glucose average, okay, living with either one of those two impairs blood flow. It impairs the delivery of nutrients to tissues all throughout your body. It impairs the ability of your immune system to effectively do its work in all parts of your body. And as a result of that, living with high blood pressure or high blood glucose it's a form of inflammation. It causes inflammation in your vasculature. And any tissue that has access to the bloodstream, which is every single tissue in your body, is going to be negatively affected by that. So you can literally just think of high blood pressure and a high A1C value or high blood glucose to be gateways to inflammation. And as a result of being a gateway to inflammation, it also will suppress your immune response because it blocks your innate immune system from getting access to tissues in specific areas of your body where that inflammation is present. Okay, inflammation reduces blood flow. Inflammation causes a reduction in the ability of immune cells in circulation to be able to get to the locations where an infection may be present. So really the name of the game is to try and reduce global inflammation inside of your body. And one of the simplest ways you can do that is to make sure that your blood glucose is well controlled, and also to make sure that your blood pressure is well controlled. The corollary to that would be the people who are living with high blood pressure and high A1C value. They're the ones that have the most metabolic overall general inflammation. And as a result of that, that's literally a breeding ground for complications as a result of being infected with a viral particle. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Makes perfect sense. So this begs the question, what lifestyle choices can people make now? And realistically, what expectation can be set of how this is going to impact their life with this whole situation around coronavirus?
Yeah, so there's many things that you can do. That's the beauty of this whole situation, is that, you know, innate immunity and adaptive immunity is a horrendously complex science. I mean, I can't even, the complexity, it's a whole other language within medicine itself. I mean, you have incredibly smart doctors and incredibly smart PhDs around the world that still can't even grasp what immunity is, because it's a very, very, very complex science. But the beauty of this situation is that you don't have to be a rocket scientist in order to put lifestyle habits into play that actually boost your overall immunity and minimize your risk for complications. And that's the beauty of this entire system.
And that's exactly right. So that's what we're talking about here at Mastering Diabetes. People right now, we're all stuck at home, Cyrus. We have been told to self-quarantine. Now is a time to make some lifestyle changes that maybe we already knew we should be making, and put it into action. And there are specific things we can do. There is research on specific foods that actually do have an impact on your innate immunity. Cruciferous vegetables are one of the most powerful immune boosting, health promoting foods. Period. End of story. All right. These foods include things like bok choy, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, cauliflower. Those are some examples of cruciferous vegetables. And some people may have never had some of these, or maybe they don't even like them. And one thing we're really passionate about at Mastering Diabetes is teaching you how to get these foods into your body in a way that you enjoy. So for example, one thing you can do is you could start adding in these foods by just doing some like vegetable trays. You know what I mean? Like you kind of like, you're watching TV right now, you're watching Instagram lives, you're trying to just keep yourself busy. You ever been to the party, you know, you have like a little tray with the dips? you just start like taking these as snacks. And when you have the right dip, the right hummus, the right sauce, it's actually really, really good stuff. So on our website, we put together a list of packaged foods that you can enjoy. We'll put a link below this episode. You can go get it. And there are really good hummuses that are already made, like a company Oasis, and I know Engine 2, and I think Credo Foods has some good ones. So there's all kinds of things you can just buy and get delivered to your house. And that can be a great way to include cruciferous vegetables. I know there is some benefit to eating them raw, but some people don't enjoy their cruciferous vegetables that way. And in that case, you just lightly steam them, 5 minutes, and that can sort of make it a little bit more palatable and a great way to enjoy them. All right. Now, green leafy vegetables, another class of foods that are known to improve your innate immunity. These are foods like spinach, arugula, kale, chard. There's also going to be foods that are going to help you. They're nitrate-rich foods, Cyrus. And I've heard you explain many times in the past how blood pressure, what's happening when you're consuming nitrate-rich foods that can help people lower their blood pressure.
There are foods that contain a large quantity of nitrate compounds. Those foods include arugula, spinach, beets, cabbage, and fennel seeds. Those are 5 nitrate-rich vegetables, but there's also a whole collection more. Now, when you consume these nitrate-rich vegetables, what ends up happening is that the nitrates go inside of your mouth. Sorry, the food goes inside of your mouth. You chomp it with your teeth. You swallow it. It goes inside of your small intestine. The nitrate compounds end up making it into your blood. They're then recirculated back into your mouth. They're then reduced from nitrate to nitrite in your mouth by bacteria. And then you then swallow them one more time. They go for a second round of digestion as nitrites. Once those nitrites get inside of your bloodstream, they are then the building blocks for another compound known as nitric oxide, otherwise known as NO. Nitric oxide is a gas. It is an incredibly powerful gas that's manufactured and secreted by the endothelial cells inside of your blood vessels. So when you give blood vessels and the endothelial cells the opportunity to manufacture nitric oxide, they make small amounts of this gas, and blood vessels inside of your body dilate. Okay, and these are blood vessels all throughout your body. They can be blood vessels in your brain. They can be blood vessels in your heart. They can be blood vessels in your musculature. It doesn't matter where they are. Nitric oxide makes blood vessels get larger. And that's a good thing, because as a blood vessel increases in its cross-sectional diameter, that means that more blood is capable of flowing through that vessel. That means that more oxygen, more red blood cells can get into that tissue. That means that more oxygen can diffuse into tissues. So you can literally think of consuming nitrate-rich vegetables as a mechanism to get more oxygen inside of cells all throughout your body. It is straight science fiction as far as I'm concerned, okay? Literally, you are consuming nitrate-rich vegetables, and as a result of that, there's more oxygen permeation in the tissues all throughout your body. Now, athletes know this, and there's many athletes that do this thing called beet doping, where they will drink a smoothie containing a significant amount of beets about an hour before they go and they perform some type of competition, or they're doing a 5K or 10K. And many athletes report that they're able to compete for less effort, and they actually get slightly better times, 5 to 10% increased improvement in their running times. And if you're an athlete and you get a 5% increase in your running time, that's a big, big, big deal, okay? So point is that you can use this same type of nitrate-rich vegetable to improve the condition of your blood vessels, drop your blood pressure, which thus decreases the amount of inflammation present in tissues, and then reduces your risk for complications if you do get infected with SARS-CoV-2.
Now that's a type of doping that I can support.
It's the best type of doping, I'll tell you that much.
All right, so let's talk about plants as effective mediators.
Yeah, so there's a paper known as, one of my favorite papers on the subject is called Immunity, Plants as Effective Mediators. And the purpose of this paper is to basically go step by step into a number of different foods and try and determine which foods have the most immune boosting activity. The first food group on this list are onions and garlic. And onions and garlic are incredibly potent immune boosting foods because they have incredibly potent immune boosting phytonutrients inside of them. And these phytonutrients are referred to as organosulfur compounds, okay? Now, there's a whole collection of these organosulfur compounds with a bunch of ridiculous names. The one that's most well-known is called allicin, not like the girl's name Allison, but Allicin. And allicin is an organosulfur compound which is found mainly in onions and garlic. And these compounds as a group have been shown to increase the function of your own antioxidant enzymatic machinery. And the names of some of these enzymes are things like glutathione peroxidase, glutathione S-transferase, cytochrome B5, cytochrome P450, and superoxide dismutase, okay? Don't worry, none of that's gonna be on the test. But the idea here is that you're eating these organosulfur compounds, which then can activate and stimulate the activity of your own antioxidant defense mechanisms.
Okay, so speaking of allicin, during our summit, many of our experts brought in some great research and shared that in our interviews. There was one study that Dr. Barnard shared where the effects of garlic were assessed in a 12-week study, including 146 volunteers who were randomly assigned to either a garlic supplement, which had 180 milligrams of allicin, or a placebo. The trial reported 24 occurrences of the common cold in the garlic intervention group, compared with 65 in the placebo group, resulting in fewer sick days in the garlic group compared with the placebo group. So 111 sick days versus 366. And what's fascinating here is that this study was just a supplement of allicin. And we get so many more benefits when you actually have the whole food in combination with a healthy diet. It's really fascinating how powerful even just a small amount of these foods can make such a large difference.
No doubt, no doubt. Yeah, with these types of foods, a little bit goes a long way. That's one of the benefits of these of phytochemicals or phytonutrients, okay? The term phyto means plant, nutrient means nutrient. Phytochemicals are known to be incredibly powerful in very, very, very small doses. And they can do everything from activate your own inherent antioxidant enzymes. They can reduce your blood pressure. They can stimulate insulin production. They can reduce platelet aggregation and beyond. So a little bit of these things goes a long way. And the idea here is to get small amounts on a daily basis rather than trying to intake very large amounts once a week or once a month.
Yes, we're always preaching consistency here. So another food you can include is ginger. It's one of the cheapest and most potent immune modulating foods available in the grocery store today. It's quite easy to access. And there are a few studies that have shown that ginger is especially effective in fighting respiratory infections. So arthritis, allergies, and gout as well. Including ginger in your diet is quite easy. Adding it to sauces and dressings you make is a great way to include it. In a lot of meals you cook, can add a lot of flavor, but also be super helpful for your immune system.
Okay,
now,
what I want to add here too, the reason why ginger is important is because the strength of the evidence in support of ginger as an immune boosting food is albeit a little bit weaker than the evidence in support of organosulfur compounds. So we know that organosulfur compounds tend to be more powerful. However, there's some evidence that ginger can have an effect. Now, Robbie also mentioned that ginger can be powerful in fighting against respiratory infections. And the reason why that's important is because SARS-CoV-2, the coronavirus, is a respiratory infection. Again, the name SARS, sudden acute respiratory syndrome. This is a respiratory virus. So any food that you can eat that can give you any fighting power to improve your general immunity, to specifically fight against any potential respiratory complication, is worth adding in for sure.
Okay, Cyrus, now this is, I know, one of your favorite topics to talk about. Green tea.
Yes.
Why is green tea so beneficial?
Okay, so green tea is routinely considered one of the most powerful antioxidants that's widely available in the grocery store. Green tea has been around for literally thousands of years. The Chinese have used it for many years, and it's become this sort of like very popular superfood in the United States, mainly because the strength of evidence in support of the antioxidants and the flavonoids that come from green tea is incredibly powerful. Green tea is one of these foods that's been, one of these foods or drinks that you can say that is known to be powerful at, number one, reducing your blood pressure. Number two, reducing your blood glucose. Number three, causing blood vessels to dilate. Okay. Number four, there's also some anti-carcinogenic properties of green tea as well. So there's many metabolic diseases for which green tea can be very beneficial, and it's an extremely powerful antioxidant. Now, there's many different compounds within the antioxidant, nomenclature, within the antioxidant collection that is present inside of green tea. The most famous, the most popular, the one that everybody talks about is a stuff called EGCG. EGCG is considered one of the most powerful antioxidants that we've found in green tea. And EGCG is high in green tea and lower in black tea. And the reason for that is because in order to get black tea, you start with green tea and you ferment it into black tea. And as the fermentation process continues, the EGCG content goes down. Okay, so adding green tea into your diet, if it's not already there on a daily basis, is something that can certainly help boost your innate immunity for sure.
Okay, so another food I've heard you talk about, or another ingredient people can use, is turmeric. And I believe you had a friend in college who did research on turmeric. So why is turmeric so helpful?
Yes, I'm actually glad that you brought that up, actually, because turmeric is one of the most powerful and widely known antioxidant-rich foods that you can buy in the store today. Now, when I was in graduate school, one of my fellow graduate students was actually studying the effect of curcumin, which is the active ingredient inside of turmeric, and its ability to fight against tumor cells in a petri dish. And what she found was that curcumin has some incredibly powerful effects at reducing tumor size and actually causing tumor cells to apoptose or commit self-suicide. As far as turmeric the effects of turmeric inside of the human body is concerned, we know that people who consume more turmeric have a lower level of inflammation. Okay, so similar to green tea, it's an extremely powerful antioxidant that can reduce blood pressure, that can cause blood vessels to dilate, and can dramatically reduce inflammation. So if it's not already present inside of your food, I highly recommend getting it either as the whole root, as you can find in some grocery stores. It looks kind of like ginger, but it has an orange color on the inside. Or you can literally buy it in a spice bottle and just add it to the food that you're eating and increase the antioxidant content of your food in a very simple way.
Okay, perfect. So people who have been watching our webinars, people who have read our book, know we're big fans of plant medicine. So in addition to following a low-fat, plant-based whole food diet, there are plants that are medicinal and that scientific research has shown can be beneficial, and in some situations, more beneficial than pharmaceutical medication. So Indian gooseberries is one of these foods, and we've actually combined that with green tea, and we made a tea called Amla green tea that people can actually purchase and utilize in their life. So if people are sensitive to caffeine, they can get benefits from a hibiscus version as well. So that's an option. But Cyrus, why are Indian gooseberries, why are Amla, why is that so effective?
Yeah, so Amla berries they're about the size of a grape, and they're fluorescent green, and they are found mainly in India. That's where they're native to. These Indian gooseberries have been used in Ayurvedic medicine for thousands of years to treat a wide variety of conditions. And these are conditions, everything from liver failure, or I should say liver inflammation, to kidney failure, to heart disease, to atherosclerosis, or the hardening of blood vessels, to diabetes, to actually infections as well, and to boost immune system function. Okay, now we all know that Ayurvedic medicine is slightly evidence-based, but also may not be 100% evidence-based. So what some researchers have actually done is tested the ability of these amla berries in real people in human clinical trials to see if they're as effective as the Ayurvedic philosophy dictates. And it turns out that there's actually some there's a whole collection of studies that demonstrate that consuming as little as 1/4 of one berry per day. I'm talking, imagine eating 1/4 of a grape per day, okay? It's a very small amount. I mean, you can eat it in like 2 bites. The idea is that a tiny, tiny bit of this can have a very profound biological effect. So when you're consuming as little as 1/4 of a berry per day, it can reduce your blood glucose just as effectively as some of the leading diabetes medication on the market today. In addition to that, amla berries are considered the #1 most powerful cholesterol-reducing food ever discovered by humans. I will say that again. Amla berries are the #1 most effective cholesterol-reducing food ever discovered by humans. So regardless of the type of diet that you're eating, regardless of whether you have high cholesterol or medium cholesterol or low cholesterol, adding these to your diet is a very effective way to make sure that your cholesterol levels either come down or stay at a low level. In addition to that, amla berries are actually known to reduce your blood pressure. There's another collection of scientific articles that actually demonstrate that. So imagine if I gave you a food and that food was capable of dropping your cholesterol, dropping your blood glucose, and dropping your blood pressure at the same time. That's how powerful these berries are. The one problem is that these berries taste like crap. You can put them in your mouth and they are just like, they're incredibly potent. You get that weird pucker face, and it's very hard to put down. So we worked hard to try and combine these berries to give people the metabolic benefit, but make it palatable. So just like Robbie was saying, we created a tea, and that tea is called amla green tea. And that tea can basically, a very small amount of that tea on a daily basis has been shown in many of the clients that we have to help them reduce their blood pressure, their blood glucose, and their cholesterol levels simultaneously.
Cyrus, we see it repeatedly. I was just on our live Q&A call this past Sunday, and I had 2 members on there being like, yeah, when I take the amla, I have to adjust my insulin dosing. I have to prepare for it because they know the repeated effect it's going to have on their blood glucose.
Absolutely. So think about it as like exercise. We always love to talk about the power of exercise in regulating your blood glucose and your blood pressure. Every time you perform exercise, your blood glucose drops, okay? It might not drop necessarily during the exercise, but it drops for the next 24 hours after that exercise. So if you're getting exercise today and tomorrow and the next day and the next day, you end up generating a cumulative effect of multiple days of exercise on your blood pressure, your cholesterol, as well as your blood glucose. The same exact thing happens when you're consuming amla berries on a daily basis. You get a cumulative effect over the course of time, which keeps all 3 of those nice and low and keeps your cholesterol, your blood glucose, and your blood pressure in check at all times. I'm not saying that I want you to be doing that in isolation. I definitely want you to still continue exercising. I definitely want you to be eating a plant-based diet, and I definitely want you to be keeping your stress levels low and your sleep high. If you do all of that together, then you can significantly improve your metabolic health, which in turn, like we talked about, reduces your risk for many complications if you were to get infected with the coronavirus. And the name of the game, I'll tell you this, in today's world, is what can you do from your house to minimize your risk for infection or minimize your risk for complications from infection. Just like we said before, the thing that you can do to minimize your risk for infection is to set up physical barriers. Isolate yourself from other people, put on a mask if you're going out in public, wash your hands, don't touch your face. Those are physical barriers. The metabolic barriers that you can put in place include eating a plant-based diet, putting plenty of organosulfur compounds in your body on a daily basis, getting amla berries in your diet on a daily basis, and getting green leafy vegetables as well as cruciferous vegetables in your diet on a daily basis. If you put these things into play, your immune system, your general immune system or your innate immune system is going to become more powerful. And as a result of that, if you do get infected with the coronavirus, then the coronavirus stands less of a chance at causing complications inside of your body, even if you are living with some kind of pre-existing condition like we've been talking about.
Well said. Now, if you guys want more information from some leading experts and go into a lot more detail, how does the gut relate here? Our interview with Dr. B was fascinating. Dr. Ruiz, and more about plant medicine. You're going to learn a lot there. Dr. Cedric talking about, he's a pulmonologist, so everything he knew about how this virus is affecting your lungs was just incredible. Dr. Gemma Newman's on the front line. Dr. Ron Weiss is on the front line. Dr. Arti, an endocrinologist, talking about diabetes specifics, and coronavirus. So all that is happening in our free summit. Do not forget to go and register. It starts this coming Saturday, April 11th, 12th, and 13th. It's a 3-day event. We'll have a link below, or just go to our website, masteringdiabetes.org, and we will see you there.